Welcome to my podcast, Esteemed Women. It used to be called Silence, and then it became Innovation, and finally now women are more empowered than ever to use their voices to express what it's really like to strive and thrive in what often tends to be a male-dominated world. I'm sure it hasn't been easy, but these women have achieved and accomplished. They truly are esteemed women who have chosen careers in science, technology and innovation. They're typically go-getters and alpha females and hard-working, and maybe even just a tiny bit perfectionistic. But on the whole, they have applied their talents and skills to really make a difference. That was certainly my own intention when I started working as a mechanical engineer. In these episodes, you'll get a chance to hear about some fascinating innovations, but you're also likely to be inspired and uplifted by their personal stories and experiences. So let's hear it from my STEM sister, an incredibly esteemed woman, Lara Lalemi.
I'm Lara Lalemi. I'm a PhD chemistry aerosol science student, but I'm also the CEO of my organisation called Creative Tuition Collective, and we're really keen about changing the education system in the UK and globally, really. But I also lead a decolonising science working group where we educate academics about how to decolonise science and the science curriculum and research.
What?
Who I am.
You what?
Decolonize.
Decolonize? What does that mean?
Ooh, okay. So decolonization is a very subjective term, and sometimes I think as a scientist, you have a fear of the social scientists coming at you saying like, "Oh, you're not saying it right." But how I've interpreted it is as the way in which our society has been formed or has been, influenced by colonialism has affected the way in which we do science. Science is largely seen as objective and neutral, especially from the Western perspective, but it's not. As soon as science is observed by a scientist, it's influenced by societies, influenced by how their views, their ethics, everything like that. So it influences what we study, how we study it, who we talk about, who we don't talk about. And colonialism has had a major effect on that, such that, for example, a lot of global South knowledge systems hasn't been integrated into the Western world. And a lot of people from marginalized groups are missed out of science. So decolonization really speaks to how do we enrich the science curriculum, enrich research so that it is actually giving a global perspective of practicing science, of doing science, of observing the world. So I feel like decolonization is, for me, not the solution, but it's a way of allowing people to step back and look at how science was created and why it was created in the way it is and what inequalities it keeps, I guess, perpetuating in our society.
So let's just say you are at the point of mission accomplished. What would science look like?
See, okay, I love that question because I think as a scientist, we're very stuck on, okay, we make a hypothesis, we observe the hypothesis, and then we get the result. And decolonization is not like that. In the 4 years or 5 years that I've been studying and looking into it, my opinion, my understanding has changed, it's warped. Essentially what I'm saying is it's a constant learning. It's not like we do decolonize science and there it is, that's the product. What it does is I think, innovates science. It constantly asks us to question what are we doing and allows us to develop it in a way that it's inclusive of as many narratives as possible. I think though, at the end of, not really at the end, but with the projects that I'm doing, what I like to achieve is for people to actually, be able to start to decolonize themselves. So it's in thinking about, okay, how am I affected by society? How does my positionality affect my privilege, and et cetera, et cetera. And I'd like them to be able to look at their courses and be like, okay, so how can I get students to kind of look at the world through a different lens, through an alternative lens? That for me is what I want to achieve. But again, it will change. If you ask me this in 2 years' time, I'm like, yeah, I did that. And now I've moved on to trying to develop a framework to use in, I don't know, curriculum development. It just changes, you know. There is no endpoint, which is really frustrating as a scientist, but it's also quite exciting, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you're tackling a gigantic problem.
I am.
Yeah, because like, if we were to just talk about the educational system, I mean, that's like trying to steer the Titanic.
It really is.
And, you know, teachers do an amazing job, but the actual overall system might not actually be working.
Yeah, and it's not. And I guess that's why decolonization inspired me, or like the decolonizing science narrative inspired me, because it's like, I know the education system isn't working the way it should be. Like, students should enjoy learning. It should be fun. It should be exciting. It should be like, oh, I can't wait to do this today, because they're learning something they really want to know, and they've connected it with their everyday life. Something that I've learned that Indigenous scientists or knowledge does is, when nature is closer to the self, so nature is part of the self, and therefore they see everything as connected to them. Whereas I think in the West we have this detachment from nature. We observe it. We're not, like, it's not a part of our being. And I think that for me is what is wrong with our education system, is that we don't have this like inner connection with what we're learning, and so therefore it becomes strenuous. So yeah, changing the way people think about learning, the way people do learning, the way people educate is huge. It is. But for me, I'm standing on the shoulders of the people that have made such amazing steps towards doing it. And I'm hoping to just add to the amount of people that are actually, like, I guess, pushing for more change in the education system, because I generally do think that when I go into schools and I hear young people doing something like, oh, I'm really bad at it, or I really hate it, and I'm like, but why? It's like, you get to learn why the sky is blue, why rainbows exist. Like, I don't know, like, I don't want young people to feel that way. And I believe partly it's because of colonialism and the way in which we've like chosen to construct our education system, that it is the way it is. And I'm if I spend my lifetime trying to change that, then that's my goals met.
My God, I didn't think we were gonna launch into such a profound conversation. But I absolutely love what you stand for. And the first thing that springs to mind is a conversation that I attended as part of the audience. And it was a conversation between a yogi, like a spiritual, wise Indian man, and a neuroscientist who writes for Nature magazine. And they were having a conversation, and a lot of the issues that you bring up were discussed in this conversation. And I remember just being like, I mean, I walked home, it was in the Science Museum, the IMAX studio cinema on the stage, and I walked home in a complete daze, because the yogi was talking about how Indian scientists, or scientists in the East, take a zoomed out approach, and they examine and analyze from a zoomed out perspective. And it's kind of like in line with Hinduism and Buddhism, this kind of like enlightened state being when you detach from everything and you like take this macroscopic view.
Mhm.
And the discussion on the other side was about how Western science is always going micro. It's always zooming in. It's looking at the cell. It's looking at the protons and neutrons in an atom. Like everything's like, let's dissect and like go back to like fundamental first principle particles. And I was just like, I am now listening to why I have been so torn my whole life, because I'm, you know, from an Eastern origin, but I was born and grew up in the West. And it's like, not conflicting, but like two ends of a spectrum of looking at things. And you're talking about that right now.
Yeah, I mean, everything you just said, I loved, because you're right. And for me, I feel that tearing, like, even though I know I was born in the West, I feel this like, why are we learning subjects? That's, for me, microscopic. We need to be learning concepts. Like, imagine if we learn about energy, but we learn about like energy in terms of physics, we learn energy in terms of spirituality, we learn energy in terms of like human interaction. Like, we learn things in concepts where we can connect the subjects together. And that's, I think, part of my decolonial approach is trying to make things interdisciplinary. Like, why do I have to separate my artistry side, like my creativity when I'm doing science? Actually, science is hugely creative, but again, you don't see the two next to each other very often or celebrated together very often.
You have to choose.
Yeah, you do. I had to choose. Like, I wanted to go to art college. Luckily, actually, my brother did stop me, well, kind of convinced me to think about it more. But I think the thing is, I had to choose between science, which I knew was going to find me a job, and art, which was something that I just loved to do. Like, I love to do art. It's like where my heart like lies. And I've been able to kind of connect the two more and more as I've grown, because we have a partnership with the RSC where we get students to write about science and their expression. But also I'm starting in this e-zine, right? And for the first time, I'm putting science next to art and poetry. And that to me is something that's beautiful, because we should be celebrating everything together. Because when science and art meet, I think that's when beautiful things happen. But again, like, I get this colonialism has allowed for this binarism in our culture, and this like separation of self and work. And I don't think that's creating the best, most creative, most innovative people, which we need to solve some of the most challenging problems that we're going to be facing, you know? So we're not fitting the bill. And so that's my problem. It's not the fact that this is just something I've like cotton on to and I just want to explore it. It's like, no, we're not actually inspiring enough students into STEM. We're suffering from a like £1 billion like a year skills gap in STEM. And again, it's because we're not making STEM enjoyable, in my opinion. The only reason why I wanted to do chemistry is because I set up my own chemistry society, and I did fun things in chemistry. I was like, oh, chemistry can be fun. So that's why I did it. So, but not a lot of kids get that, you know? So yeah, I think for me, I understand that like tearing of yourself. It's like there's a formality within Western science. And I think a lot of people think
protocol.
Yeah, exactly. And I think a lot of people think when you say decolonizing science, they're like, oh, you want to throw away all the Western science. It's like, not at all. Colonial science, Western science has done a lot. It has led to a lot of progress. It's not demonizing anything. It's, like I said, enriching it. It's bringing in those Indian philosophers and mathematicians, all of those kind of stories, and bringing it into the Western world. I mean, like, okay, how can we collaborate together? How can we make and enrich and empower young people with all of this knowledge, you know?
You are so talking my language, and I'm so,
Oh, brilliant.
I'm so talking your language.
Yes.
I mean, it just makes so much sense to me what you're saying. And it feels like actually a lot of things that have been swirling around inside me and actually troubling me for a long, long time are like landing. Just listening to you, I'm just like, it makes so much sense to me.
Oh, thank you. I mean, that's why
it's so profound. It's so profound. It's so necessary. Why are we not doing it?
Truthfully, because I've talked to economists, I'm trying to take an interdisciplinary approach myself. I think we're not doing it because the system works for the people that it works for. So why change it? You know, like, and that's why I created tuition, because I realized I wasn't going to change the system the way it was. So I wanted to create a new one. I wanted to create a new way of thinking, a new education system, starting with tutoring, because you've got to start small, but like starting with just thinking about differently, educating differently, inspiring differently. So that I'm such a fan of, and I've realized this, I'm a fan of, okay, if you can't make a new system for us, if you won't change this current system and you believe that's working, fine, but I'm going to show you a better way. That's what that's inspired me, because I just think, like I said, the UK education system is working for exactly the people it's meant to be working for, and isn't working for the people that it isn't, you know? And even white lower income students are disadvantaged. Every student is disadvantaged by not knowing more things. And that's the problem of it. Everyone is at a disadvantage of not knowing about ancient African traditions and just indigenous mathematics. Like, some of the stories I've heard, it's incredible. Like Ron Eglash did this work where he talks about how Bamana Sand delineation, which is about a 4-bit binary code, led to the computer. And just knowing that, like, an ancient African tradition led to the computer, I was like, it blew my mind. I was like, what? And just knowing that story, I feel like empowered me even more. So I think it can only do good, what I'm saying, but people don't. Trying to convince people that the current system isn't working and that the new system or a new system could, it is a big task. You know, it's asking them to tear down their own world.
I mean, we're living in a day and an age where you can be heard. You know, if we were to just talk about social media, if you've got something to say, you can now say it. And people can choose to follow you or not. That wasn't the case 20 years ago when there was no platform. We all had to listen to certain key individuals that were put on pedestals, and whatever they said was kind of the law. Today, you can expose all the things that inspire you, because, you know, when I go on social media, the things that pique my interest are like, you know, those like little short clips where someone does like a crazy difficult mathematical multiplication or something, but they do it in a way that I wasn't taught, and I'm like,
yes, I was gonna say this.
Doing tallies,
lines, yeah.
And it's just like, wait, there's some like weird magical things that are going on in other communities that we're just not shown. And when you are underrepresented and you come from an ethnic minority, you're just like, I mean, I don't speak a word of my parents' languages, right? And I'm just like, I wonder what they know that is absolute genius that I will never be taught because I grew up in the West. So there's that. So like, you know, I understand this whole starting small thing, because it's like, you know, we all have to start small and then gain confidence in our message and gain a following and build that way. And my God, like so much of what you've said, I really resonate with, because like, for example, the book that I wrote, I went down a very academic engineering route, and lo and behold, I'm not in engineering anymore, you know, for want of a, you know, I mean, call a spade a spade. I'm not deeply in engineering anymore. Why is it that I went through a whole academic system doing everything the way I was expected to do, university, doctorate, all of that, and I'm not in engineering? And then I write a book where I'm writing about professors in academia, but also apprentices, and hearing and witnessing their absolute love for what they do. What is the difference? The difference is they are immersed. It's not like, oh, let's point over there and look at things from a distance. It's like getting immersed. Like, I loved what you said about nature. You know, it's like, how does this apply to me? Why does this affect me? Finding those areas that really strike a chord within people, whichever ethnicity they're from.
Yeah. I mean, this is the thing, right? So I cannot believe you just said that, because I was on Instagram and I saw them doing like there was, I think it was Vedic mathematics and another Asian mathematics, and they were using lines. And I was like, oh my God, why have I been taught long multiplication when it's this easy? But the problem is, if I ask my tutors to teach young students to do that, they go and do that in their school, teachers will mark that down because they're like, well, didn't do it in the way that we know it should be done. And so I think starting with teachers, and that's kind of one of the strings of what we do, looking and starting to educate teachers and trying to change that system as well, I think is really important, because like, I don't know why we aren't using other methods that are easier and quicker. And it's our mind,
and actually artistic.
Yeah.
I'm remembering something I saw the other day where it was like a crazy, like 4-digit number multiplied by a 3-digit number. And you absolutely could not do that in your head. I know how to do that. You know how to do that using traditional multiplication, you know? But the guy put like lines, and then like vertical lines and horizontal lines, and then pointed out the nodal points where there was a crossing of lines, and counted those nodal points up and basically came to the answer.
Yeah.
And it was like, not only was it mind-blowing that mathematically it was correct, but it was really beautiful to see this mathematical thing come to life, like visually.
And like, I find what you're saying about engineering and why you're not in there. I know I don't know your story, but I think it's the same story as me in chemistry, actually. I've done a whole PhD. I don't want to stay in chemistry. I just don't. And some people might say, and it's not, I wouldn't say it's not true. Yes, you don't see Black, female, queer people represented. Actually, I don't think there's many, if any, Black, female, queer chemistry professors in the UK. Considering there's only one Black male professor in the UK, I don't think there is. So yeah, I don't see the representation there. It's also to do with the culture. I don't believe the culture is conducive to like honoring all parts of myself. Like, I don't feel like I'm going, like those people that I must say love engineering, they love chemistry, they breathe it. I breathe multiple things. I breathe science, but I also breathe art. I breathe music, I breathe dance. Like I'm not saying we have to all bring those in together, but like it's like it feels like you can't bring your whole self into science. You bring parts, and if I'm not my whole self, then I'm not my whole self. So I want to be able to have a job that celebrates all parts of me in a way that makes me feel like I can add to the field. I can add, and I think that's what education makes me feel like. I feel like I can add to the voices of people that have come before me and offer a different perspective, and I can be exactly who I want to be, because people aren't really looking at the minutiae. I feel like it's more zoomed out, you know. And I think, and I when you're talking about the microscopic and the macroscopic, you need both. You need fundamental science and you need them, like the overall science. But I think what that struck a chord in me, it was saying that often when I was in school, they used to say, oh, think outside of the box. And I used to be so frustrated by that phrase. I was like, what does the box look like? You've never taught me what science is, how it was made, the history. So how can I think outside of something I don't know when I don't know what it looks like, you know? And I think that's the education, I think, or going down this decolonization route has allowed me to kind of view what the box looks like, so I can now start to think outside of it. But it's taken 25 years for me to be able to see any kind of like what it looks like. And so I think that's also a problem, you know? I know I went off a bit of a tangent there, but like it's thinking outside of the box is such a annoying phrase sometimes, I think.
I so get it. Like I so get it. And like everything you just said about the dancing, the art, the music, all of these things, growing up, I felt bad for being drawn to those things, you know. And actually, for the most part of my career, I felt bad for loving those things. And it's taken time and age and the development of confidence and self-esteem to go, you're not less of an engineer for loving those things. But honestly, that was the message that was drummed into me. You can't be an engineer and like art. You can't be an engineer and enjoy being on a stage. You can't be an engineer and want to make films that dumb down content. I'm like, do you know how much skill it takes to make something complex simple? You have to absolutely, even Einstein said it, if you can't explain something simply, you do not understand it well enough. And honestly, this is the first time I'm actually speaking out against the amount of people that have told me, you must be dumb because you're not doing the complex stuff you used to do. It really has hurt, you know, growing up, where you're constantly being told that anything outside of some Nobel Prize winning research, whatever, like makes you not smart enough. Just so difficult. Because I'm like, you know, as you've done, when you're doing a PhD, you're writing academic journal papers, you're like going to conferences, you're mixing with people that are like really intellectual and really academic. And if you do anything like wear lipstick or put on nail varnish, or God forbid, wear a skirt, somehow that is a judgment against your academic ability. And so, you know, it affected like the way I dressed, the way I presented myself. And so, as you say, like I had to turn down the volume of certain parts of myself just so that I wouldn't be condemned for not being 100% intellectual, because apparently that's like the height of everything.
Oh, Yes, I understand. And to be honest, I have stopped caring if I wear makeup and people are like, oh wow. But one of the things that you actually, that was really interesting because that sparked a thought. So I gave this presentation to an Amsterdam company that does presentations for I guess let's say tech industry people. And I was talking about decolonization, right? And I said, okay, I'm going to tell you about all these things. And I gave a presentation, and he said, oh, if I stop you midway, it means I'm not very interested or it's not very good. And I got over halfway and I was like, oh my God, it's great then. And then he stopped me. He's like, look, the way you've described decolonizing science is so academic that no one's going to be interested in it, but no one's going to connect with it. It was this fact that like when you make something super, super academic, it's harder for people to understand what you're trying to say in your story. You have to make a story, you have to make it, you have to connect it to the people, you know what I mean? Like, and it's not dumbing it down, it is simplifying, but simplifying in a way that people go, oh, then you complicate it, right? And I think that was the first time anyone had ever said I was academic, because up until that point I was like, I'm not academic. Because I've been around intellectuals, you know, been around people that put tons of equations on their slide, explain it sometimes quite dully, and I was like, I'm not that. Like I barely think I'm a scientist, you know. And so when he said that, I was shocked, and I was like, oh, it's because of the way, we are taught to conform. Taught to, this is the way you show your intelligence, this is the way you show science, and it's not true. It's not. I go back to, not that there hasn't been storytelling in the West, but like it's more like within indigenous cultures, like one of the things is like they don't necessarily write down a lot of their knowledge that is transferred via stories, right? And so you have to make the story interesting enough to be retold, and I think there's something beautiful about that. And so I can understand what you're saying is like having to conform to this way of being and knowing and explaining things and being seen as different is quite difficult. And but when you look at like the history and how people have done it, you're like, no, this is exactly how I should be doing. And I hope you are still doing it in the way or simplified way in which they call it, because I think that's a much more beautiful way of explaining. If everyone in the room can understand exactly what you're saying, that is powerful, rather than just a few that are intellectual. Like, I think what you're doing is incredible, to be honest. And simplified, I'm for simplified versions all the time. So I hope that I resonated with what you were saying, and I was just trying to bring in this idea of like, there's different ways of explaining things. And it doesn't have to be this one track way.
Do you know what? I don't see it as simplifying it.
Okay.
Talking to you, I don't see it as simplifying it. When I hear what you're saying, I realize that it wasn't that I was trying to simplify something. It was that I was trying to bring people in. Because I absolutely adored what you said about nature, because in all of my work, I often sacrifice connecting with nature. And so when I want to relax and switch off, I want to be in nature, and it helps me really get to that, like, sort of, it allows me to return to my center of gravity, and I'm not simplifying what I'm doing. I'm trying to get people to return to a center of gravity, because when we get really academic and really high level, we're not in ourselves. We've detached, and this is what like completely blows my mind about science, because I was at CERN a few weeks ago, right? And I have always wanted to go to CERN. Like, it was just a dream to be there because so much physics happens. And at the same time of all that physics happening, traditional physics, there's something so spiritual about that place, because they are trying to find particles that they're still looking for, because we're in a realm of like, all right, this is now touching on what they call the God particle. I mean, not CERN calls it, but the media have coined that term, the God particle. I was actually told not to use that term and just keep it as the Higgs boson. But it's like physics really nudges up against questions like, is there a God? Existential questions. And it's such a knife edge, you know, and that's why I love CERN. But right now, CERN has this reputation of just being full of like Nobel Prize winning physicists. And it's so not that. It's like this beautiful, creative, like bubble of like innovation and thinking outside the box. And like, I mean, CERN is probably the box, and you've just got like all kinds of people that are thinking outside of it. It's like, and this is what really kind of like frustrates me about people being judgmental, because yeah, I could ignore everyone's everyone's assumptions about, oh, you're simplifying, you're dumbing down, you're doing it. And it's like, what I find frustrating is, in being judgmental, you miss the point. Mm-hmm. And you really miss out. Like, you not only miss the point, you literally miss out on this like beautiful enrichment of learning, evolution, self-development, like understanding.
You're right. It's not a simplification. It's not. You're right. It's learning to bring people in. Yeah, I agree. I don't think I have anything to add to that, because that's all. If in my career I can bring more people into STEM just from the way I explain it, and the joy and the passion I put into it, and the story I can create, then that is a job done, you know? And the way you just described CERN, like that's how everyone should, should and must, but I believe that's how everyone should light up when they talk about something they enjoy or something they see and they're amazed by. Like, I would love to talk about spirituality and science in the same breath, but again, it's not done. And I think it's this idea that like we have to separate what's explainable and what's currently unexplainable, you know, and we have to keep them in their own realms. And I don't know why we're so scared of like bringing things together and just, creating a different space, you know, of questioning, of curiosity, of constantly wanting to know, like, what is spirituality through science and science through spirituality? What is art through science? And, music and all these things. So, I agree with that.
It's why the educational system, I'm so happy that you're making strides in trying to change things, because I think one of the major things that the educational system is lacking is this acceptance that people make mistakes and fail.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
That's the part of not knowing, unlearning, uncertainty.
I just think we make in the UK, and I can only speak of the UK system, we make students choose too early what they're meant to do, and then we say, when you fail, well, that's your career over. Like, I didn't do very well I didn't do as well as I should do in my ASs and my A2s, and so I didn't get into medicine. And that's been part of my story. I literally tell people, I'm like, look, I failed my A-levels and my A2s. Like, I didn't get the grades to get into medicine, but that was the best thing that ever happened to me, because I do not and should not be a doctor, medical doctor anyway. I was lucky enough to have the sense enough to go into chemistry. No one told me to. I was like, okay, chemistry. Best decision I ever made, through a mistake. Again, in the first year, failed my first part of my maths degree, got kicked off the course in the one that I needed to do. Best thing that ever happened to me, because I wouldn't be doing aerosol science if I didn't. And what we need to teach young people is, like, make your mistakes. But the best thing you can ever do is pick yourself up and keep going. Realign, reanalyze, think about where you want to go. Where do you fit in terms of world? And strive towards that. Like, I tell people to create your, like, short-term, mid-term, long-term goals, your vision board, and trying to create small steps to where you want to go, because you may fail, but when you have this vision, then do you know what I mean? It's always there. And I don't think that's what we do. We do vision boarding with young people, because I don't think we teach enough that, like, your life will ebb and flow and you're meant to make mistakes. Like, that's how I've learned, through people calling me out, being like, that's not how I would describe decolonization. That's not what I would say it is. And me being like, let me sit with that. Okay, yep, I made a mistake. And then I corrected. You have to learn through that. Like, otherwise, what are we doing?
It's so tricky, though, because when I listen to you, I see someone that is has a really strong calling. I really feel the power of your calling, right? And it's like, you've done all these amazing things, like PhD in chemistry, like all this STEM amazing stuff that's really impressive on a CV. Mm-hmm. But your calling is so much bigger than that.
Mm. It is.
It's so rich, and it's so not necessarily like science and logical and rational, but it's like in this like magical, creative, mystical sphere, right, that informs the STEM but inspires it. So it's huge, right? And it's like, when people criticize, like, this is why failure is such a fragile thing, because it's like, when you fail, when you have failed, it could really take you off the path of your calling. Like, if someone says to you, you are doing something wrong, mm-hmm. and you so want to succeed, and it's like, how much do you listen to people telling you you're failing when actually you've got this bigger calling? It's like not easy.
I'll tell you something. So the first ever diversity in STEM event I had, one of my mentors or people that inspired me came up to me and said, "You are not good at giving presentations. You need to work on it." I went home and cried. Like, I was just like, and to be honest, I knew, like, it was not a good presentation. I was stuttering. It wasn't great. And the thing is, because my mum gave me so many opportunities to, like, I did performing arts. So I did, I did arts. I did sport. I did dancing, all those things. I went away and I was like, okay, how am I going to listen to this person? I think that's how am I going to listen to it? Because, like, yes, you can take it. I could have easily been like, okay, right, should never give a presentation again. Like, I'm really not good at it. I'm really bad at it. Well, what I did is go, okay, I know I'm confident. I know I can perform. What was wrong on that day? What did I not put in place that allowed me to be my best self, be funny, be performative? What happened? And it's through that analysis, then the next year I came back and I smashed the presentation, so much so that people loved what we did. And so it's how, and I think also my family has taught me this as well, it's how you deal with failure. It's not what the failure really is, you know. It's like, how do you, and actually it comes also from this inner spirituality as well. It's like, how do you self-reflect and how deep do you go? Like, we all have demons, we all have that thing on the shoulder being like, you're not good enough, you're not meant to be here, give up, right? We all have those things. But what power are you giving to that voice? Like, how much is it taking up of your brain? Because for me, I'm trying to lower the percentage of what I listen to that voice. So I'd say completing my PhD, I probably hear that voice about 10% of the time, and I probably listen to it like 5, you know, because I'm trying to understand that, like, it's always going to be there, but it's the power you give it and the power that you allow yourself to have instead, I think. Sorry. So yeah, I think for me, we have to learn how to fail in a good way. Don't know how to, but you have to learn how you do it personally. Like, what's going to help you? Because my method of going in, listening to myself, healing, going to my therapist, talking to my friends, that's my way. Some people need to like draw, some people need to go and dance, some people need to listen to music. Like, find your way to recenter yourself, because once you do that, once you find your sweet spot, then failure just becomes part of your story. And no matter how big it is, you do know that, like, you're gonna come back to that center again. You know, nothing's so big that you can't recenter yourself and start again.
Yes. It's like so profound. Yeah, it's kind of crazy because I've really been trudging through life. Doing my PhD was really hard. Migrating out of engineering into an industry I had no idea about, knew no one, no clue, and trying to always stay on the path of my own calling, even at times where I'm like, what the hell am I doing? Why am I doing, like, where does this come from? You know, and doing it anyway. I can say that the more I have achieved has not correlated with the little gremlins on my shoulder telling me I might actually be screwing up, you know? So what I'm trying to say, put another way, is like, the more success you get, it doesn't make those voices get quieter.
Nope.
And it's like, what you have just said really is almost like, you know, some people say that God or the universe, whatever force is greater than us, right, speak through people. And I really feel like this conversation has given me everything that I really need to hear, because recently, especially with the publishing of the book, like, some really big things have been really great. Like, things are on an upward trend, but I have never needed to get recentered more than during this time. And, you know, when you talk about people maybe listening to music, going to dance, like, however they recenter, I have been really needing to go back to meditation. That's how I recenter, right? Everyone has their own thing. And for a few days now, I've been really like off balance. because major stuff's been happening and I'm just like not centered. And it's just like, it's such a beautiful message that you carry, because the way we deal with failure and criticism and all of those things is almost counterintuitively to not like go towards that criticism like a bull in a china shop, but actually to zoom out and try and connect with that bigger calling that we all have.
Yeah, 100%. I'm really glad that you do have something that recenters yourself. Like, that's why I feel incredibly lucky, because I mean, I haven't faced a failure in a long time. So I know it's really easy to say when you feel like in a place of comfort, but because I found my why, and this is what I tell students and everyone I meet to do, find your why. Find your why are you doing this? Why am I getting up in the morning? Like, I guess the parts that are hard for me now is like, I do 10, 11-hour days trying to get my company to work, to get donations, all these things. And sometimes I genuinely just want to give up. I'm like, do you know what? I'm done. I want to wash my hands of it. I'm going to get an average job, just be part of the system. That's fine. But then my why pulls me back and goes, but is that really what you want to do? Are you not just finding it hard? Do you not just need to recenter yourself? Do you not just need to take time for yourself? Maybe sit in the garden, feel the sun on your skin, and feel part of something bigger. And that's what my why does. It makes me feel a part of something bigger. I'm contributing to, I don't know what, but I know at some point I'm going to look back and be like, I am so glad I did that. I'm so glad I changed that. I'm so glad I said that. Because you actually never know who you're going to affect. Like, you today have, again, reinvigorated me. Like, I don't know, everything you've said has made me feel a lot more centered in myself. I don't know how to explain it. It just feels I feel very empowered today. And so, like, you never know who you're going to affect in your journey. So don't take everything you're doing for granted, you know, like, and that's what I truly believe. And that's how I come back to, okay, yeah, this is hard right now. Doing a PhD, hard, very extremely hard. But at the same time, it's worth something, it's for something. And I think that for me that's what keeps me going, and that's what keeps me coming back to myself and feeling like, I guess, restocking that energy. I don't know how to explain it, like invigorating that energy, you know.
What you're doing is part of a tapestry.
Yeah, that's how I describe it. Like, but we're all interwoven in that tapestry. And I think sometimes what I'm finding in Western science is we don't like know how to weave together, you know. Yeah. We don't know how to sit and be like, oh, I love that part of you, I love how you perform, show me this, and like, I love that other part of you, show me that. Like, one of the reasons why I created science communication opportunities for young people is because they don't get to use their voice in the creative, like, explaining and a natural way. They just have to conform to this scientific way, and so I want them to be able to develop that voice. And I guess that's something that's a skill, you know, and that's a skill that like science can bring in and nurture. And I think that's my thing. Like, I think we need to nurture parts of people, like, in different ways in science, which we don't do. I think we need to like celebrate each other in a way that we're not currently doing, you know, in any of the sciences, really. Like, I know there's like University of York and some parts of Leicester, really great. They do some incredible work in terms of decolonization and making science more inclusive. But I think we have to go beyond that. I think we have to again start with the self again, you know, like, why are people here? Like, why are you staying up till 12 o'clock at night grading these papers? Like, what's making you do that, you know? Because no one can make you do anything, really. You don't have to be in academia, but you're doing it because you love educating, or you're doing it because you love research, or you're doing it because you want to help the younger generation. Like, there's always something, you know?
Yeah. I feel like we could chat for hours, and and yeah, like it's so weird because we've totally like launched into like a profound level of consciousness. Like, so for the benefit of just getting back down to earth, we sort of like part ways. Do you want to just give like a whistle stop tour of like what you've done to get to this point? Because we're like floating right now, and I'm just like, what are the, you know, rounded points that where people can just visualize your path?
My journey, yeah. So I did a master's in chemistry at the University of Bristol. And then I did an internship in atmospheric chemistry, which led me into believing, or actually, I guess, wanting to be part of the climate change story. And so that led me on to doing aerosol science. Aerosols is one of the quickest and most important parts of, I feel like, chemistry nowadays. It was so important in COVID research. So I've been working in a brilliant team at the University of Bristol, studying aerosol science and levitating particles and lasers and electrodynamic fields. And yeah, it's been brilliant. So I've been doing that, and I've been looking at surface tension and viscosity, which affect cloud growth. So that's what I've been doing on that path, and that's my science path. But alongside that, I have been doing diversity in STEM conferences, being me in STEM conferences, really talking about like what is it like to exist in this space as a marginalized person, teaching teachers, teaching academics how to be inclusive, how to make their curriculum inclusive, but also, yeah, like in everything I'm doing, not just trying to punch up, but like giving a hand to people that haven't or aren't where I am, and trying to pull them with me, you know, bring them along. So educating students on what decolonization means, giving them opportunities that I didn't have, like laboratory experience in a university, really empowering those students to become their best selves, reach their potential. And so that's the work I've been doing with my company, Creative Tuition. You can find us on Instagram. So yeah, I think for me, it's both like my science kind of career and my education, or my, I guess, activist kind of career, have kind of been happening alongside each other as I've gone. And I wouldn't have it any other way, really. Like, I'm a type of person that needs to have multiple loves in order to really like be a force for change. So that's what I want to continue being, and I think that's my path.
Yeah, and you are a force, and I hope you never lose your light.
Thank you. So do I. I hope I always have the people around me to reignite me if I do.
And what's your heritage, just so people can kind of understand?
Yeah. No, I love that question. So I'm Grenadian, so Caribbean, and I'm Nigerian on my dad's side. So my mom's Grenadian, my dad's Nigerian, but I'm also Black British. So I feel 3 cultures in me. And I think for me, that is beautiful. Like, I am so glad I get to see the different cultures and get to pick and choose which parts that make me feel at home, you know, especially the food. So yeah, that's my heritage.
Well, Lara, like literally I've had goosebumps from beginning to end of this conversation. I hope our paths cross, because everything we've discussed has just so deeply resonated with me. I feel like I just know you. I get you, like on a fundamental level, and I really celebrate what you're doing. I really endorse what you're doing. I think it's so essential that we do widen perspectives on STEM. So keep doing what you're doing. If you are having moments of like being disheartened, like I think we all do, don't let it ever discourage you. I have a feeling it won't, because you are extremely strong and powerful and resilient. And you've just been utterly inspiring today. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you so much. That's meant a lot to me, honestly. I'm not gonna cry, but thank you. Yeah, it's really hard. So to keep going on this path. So like, days like today, I'm very happy.
So amazing. So I would have cut it at thank you.
Yeah, no, I guessed that, but I wasn't really sure where.
Yeah, no. And I just I don't know. I feel like we need to collaborate, and talking to you, meeting you somewhere, like I feel like at the moment I feel like I'm really attracting and having conversations and kind of being drawn to people that have our mission. And what I'm trying to, it's kind of weird because as you were talking, I was like, okay, I've just had a conversation with someone in America about similar things. And I just feel like we all need to get together.
Yeah, I love that. That would be great. I think we should do that. I think I don't want this to be the end of contacting you. Like today felt really, really good. I hope you know that you're really good at making someone feel comfortable. So thank you for that. Like I know sometimes I rambled a little bit, but you never.
No, God, you absolutely didn't. Like my issue was like, how do we like literally contain? It was like, you know, nuclear fusion, just like a total release of so much power. And it's like, how do we package it in a way that's going to not lose people?
Yeah, I get you. Yeah, I mean, I didn't expect to start with decolonization, but there we go. But yeah, like I would love to continue working with you, and if you want to join us all together, you have my email. And I would love for you to come and give a talk to my students as well about your career path.
Where are you? You're in Bristol.
So I'm in London, but I'm also, my company is based in Bristol, so I travel back and forth.
Because I'm going to be in Bristol on the 19th of April, because I'm filming with the Bristol Robotics Lab.
Oh yeah, I know. Yeah, okay, I know them. Well, not Silas.
Yeah,
Silas.
Yeah.
Oh wow, I love Silas. Yeah. He's amazing. Okay. Yeah. Well, what time do you have time free?
They're meant to be. By the way, I'm driving up because trains are ridiculously expensive.
They are.
Is that normal? Is it normal that you spend £191 one way? Or
no,
I just left it too late?
No, that's not normal. That's not even no. Because I've booked it 4 days before and it's not been that expensive. What?
Yeah.
There might be a train strike. No, then it will be.
I'm just like, fine, we're driving.
Wait, where are you from? Where are you currently?
Right now, I'm in Paris because I'm engaged. So I kind of live between Paris and London. But yeah, I'm a Londoner and I've got my place there, and so I'm there all the time.
But you're going to be going from London? Or from Paris?
Well, I'm going to Monday, and that's the 17th, and then I'll go to Bristol from my place in London. But I think I'm going to drive. Yeah.
I think driving's cheaper and it was a lot more control, but just be careful with traffic. It's actually horrific in and out of London and into Bristol as well. So yeah, just be aware of that. I know you're a Londoner, so you know, but like Bristol sometimes also gets awful. What time are you, like, did you want to go for coffee on the Thursday?
Yeah, I would absolutely love to go for coffee.
You say on the 19th?
We're going to be done. Yeah, we're going to be done at 1 p.m.
Okay.
Ish.
I have time between 2 and 3.
Let's do it.
Are you at the University of Bristol?
Yeah, well, robotics lab.
That might be at UE though.
Bristol Robotics Lab.
Let me have a look at where that is. Hang on. Oh no, yeah, that's fine. It's the University of Bristol. Yeah, that works for me because I'll be already there.
Let me put that in my diary because I'm just so. Oh, hang on. Supposed to be having lunch back in London. Are you actually going to be in Bristol on that day?
Yeah. But like I said, like this week is still quite chock-a-block for me, but like I'm in London the week after, so we can meet in London if you'd like. Or have you got to go back to Paris?
I'm only in London. Well, I'm Cambridge Monday, Guildford Tuesday,
Wow.
Leeds Wednesday, and then Thursday I fly out.
Damn. Wait,
Yeah.
what do you currently do now then? Are you still an engineer?
No, I mean, I don't do engineering anymore, if I'm just like completely transparent. But you know, just published this book. Silas,
I saw it. It's on the order list.
So Silas is in the book, and that's why I'm filming with him, because I'm doing a massive social media campaign around the book.
Yes.
And actually, I'm thinking, like, is what you do really visual?
Yeah.
Like
with the lasers?
I don't know. Like, what stuff do you do? Because maybe we could do a film with you.
I mean, we do. I'd have to check with my boss, but like we do. Like I said, we levitate particles with lasers, and aerosol.
Do you see that, or is it all so microscopic that you wouldn't even?
Oh no, it's like a massive green laser. You can definitely see it.
And what's the overall, like, what's your research about? Like, what are you?
So, like I said, like we look at the macroscopic. So we look at the properties I do atmospheric. But I mean, if you walked into the lab, it's like there's a lot, everything, everywhere. But I looked at how particles grow into cloud condensation nuclei and therefore grow into cloud droplets. So we look at because clouds have a net cooling effect on the planet. We're looking at what affects cloud growth. But there's people in the lab looking at like COVID, like looking at lung fluid, looking at there's so many things in the lab it's really cool. I think it's a really cool lab. Pardon?
You're an engineer. Could you an engineer?
Oh no, I wouldn't call myself an engineer, but aerosols does feature in engineering.
So you're more of a chemist? No, it's just if we could somehow make you fit into an engineering category, then I could put you in the campaign. But like,
I see.
What do you think?
I don't know if we can do that because again, chemistry by trade, but I do. The thing is, I've done. It depends on what perspective you want to give, right? Because I've worked with the engineering department and brought a load of students to the engineering department to do some civil engineering, and so I could probably talk to them about filming there. Basically what I'm saying is I try to make engineering more accessible for young people. That's what I do, like part of what I do. I don't really do much of the actual sciencey bits. Well, I don't want to anymore. I want to like throw that out the window.
Yeah. No, it's just the book is Engineers Making a Difference, right?
Yes.
Silas is in the book because he has made robotics and like, you know, everything's robotics. Like he's a robotics engineer.
Yeah.
And with you, if we could somehow film something super visual, like this idea of like understanding how clouds grow is such an easily relatable thing, especially if it's about climate change. But if we could film something that is chemical engineering slanted,
yeah,
highly visual, and where people, you know, watching the video on YouTube will like either tell their friends or be down the pub going, did you know that engineers are like learning how to seed clouds or whatever, to stop climate change, like something that basic.
Yeah, I get you. See, the thing is, if you give me more time, I would have spoken to Agawal. He does organic chemistry, but he worked as Silas on creating robotics so he has a whole robotics wing with like synthesizing drugs and things like that. That would be
meet him.
Pardon?
We might meet.
Yeah, I mean, depends what Silas has set up for you. I mean, you might be able to, because that was his last project, so he might set that up for you. Yeah, let me look into it, because I can't speak on the chemistry engineering side. I mean, I can only speak on the chemistry side of cloud growth. And actually, yeah, you're right. Like, engineers have started to seed clouds, and it's a whole issue. But yeah, I can't speak on the engineering side. Equally, I'd still like to meet you. So
yeah,
if you have time on the Thursday, on what, the 19th, did you say?
Yeah, so it takes about 2.5 hours to drive back, right? So
Yeah.
If we had a coffee till 3, then I'll be back at 5:30. Let me just see something. Yeah, I mean, we could do that. Let's pencil it.
Yeah.
Basically have to meet a producer in London, but it could easily be later.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. So if we can schedule 2:15, because I'm gonna be in Enginsted near the station, but like it doesn't take that long to get to the University of Bristol. So like 2:15 to 3, that would be really great, just to have just a chat.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I'd love that. By the way, you have been recording this whole thing, so you're just gonna have to chop a lot off it.
Oh yeah, don't worry.
But yeah, I'll put it in my calendar.
Lalemi,
yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Well, hopefully see you on the 19th.
Yeah, let me know. Pardon?
Thank you so much for today.
Oh God, no! Like, thank you. Like, I wasn't sure what to expect, but this has been brilliant. If you need any of, I don't know how you promote this. Like, if you need any of my like Instagram handles or anything like that.
Yes. Actually, let me follow you now.
It's at Creative Tuition Collective. Or do you mean on LinkedIn?
Are you the same on LinkedIn?
Yeah, but just without this. Instagram is the same without spaces. So
Creative Tuition Collective.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So this will be on in about 3 weeks. It's always posted on a Tuesday. Okay. So 3 weeks, and I put it on LinkedIn. I put it everywhere, like YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, and so I'll try and put like all your handles out.
That would be brilliant. Thank you so much. Have a lovely day.
Too. Take care. Bye.
Thanks for listening, and please do subscribe to this podcast and maybe even rate and review it if you can. The more ratings and reviews, then the more interest from those trusty algorithms, which could help to increase the reach of this show. And you can watch the video recording of this conversation on YouTube for my new series called eSTEAMD Women. It's all about self-discovery and self-evolution on innovation. So as always, be kind and loving to yourselves, and I wish you all a great week.